As you can probably tell from all of these flyers behind me, today is election day in Israel. And one of the things that I personally feel is very wrong with almost basically everyone that runs for public office is that they play a short-term game for something that is a very long-term journey. You know, in Israel, there's elections for mayor every 4 or 5 years, yet people only spend several weeks actually running for office. You see, all of these papers behind me are from people who just, instead of actually trying to convince you to vote for them for mayor or council or whatever they're running for, they just leave papers like this, trash all over the floor, in hopes that somehow I'm gonna pick up this paper and consider actually voting for the person on the flyer. So the big problem here is that so many people, when they run for public office, they don't spend the time to actually try to convince anyone. They just hope, maybe if I call someone a dozen times, which I've received probably a dozen phone calls from every party that exists, instead of trying to, spend a week calling me every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, instead, actually spend the time over the 4 or 5 year period convincing me that you are doing stuff that's great for the community. Like take a weekend and actually help somehow. I don't know. If with all these claims of great things you're gonna do as mayor, you could probably spend, 1 weekend every month doing something, even if it doesn't cost you anything. You want to help with kids with special needs, so show up to a school with kids with special needs and actually do something. You want the parks to be clean, so set up a little volunteer thing and clean the parks. Don't just show up a month before the elections. Oh, by the way, these are more election signs. Don't just show up the week before the election and hope that signs and phone calls and flyers and a huge mess everywhere is going to convince anyone to vote for you. And this same thing is true in business. Don't play the short game, because if you just show up a week before, no one's going to have any reason to buy from you. And even calling them a dozen times every morning for 3 months will not be enough to win my vote.